Welcome back to the Awesome Agents podcast. I am Alex Rivera, and today we are talking about a story that made me do a genuine double take.
Yeah, this one is wild. OpenAI is apparently building its own GitHub, like their own code hosting platform.
Right, and before we get into the drama, let's back up. Why is OpenAI even looking at this? What happened?
So GitHub had a really bad February. 37 separate incidents in a single month. At one point, uptime dropped below 90%.
37 in 1 month. That's not a bad day. That is a structural problem.
Exactly. And the February 9 outage was especially painful. The whole web interface became basically unusable for hours.
So engineers could not push code, could not review pull requests, nothing.
Nothing. And for a company like OpenAI that's running hundreds of engineers and AI coding agents that all depend on GitHub at every step, that is really costly.
Okay, so I want to ask about that because this is not just about human developers, right? Their own AI tools are affected too.
That is the part I find most interesting. Tools like Codex CLI, Cursor, these agent driven coding loops require a functioning Git remote at every step.
So when GitHub goes down, your AI coding agent just stops?
It hits a wall. There's no graceful degradation. The loop breaks. And if you're paying for an agentic coding assistant, that failure is very visible.
So OpenAI has extra skin in this game because their own products depend on it.
Right, and here is where the story gets structurally interesting. Why is GitHub so unstable right now?
I was going to ask you that. It's a huge platform. They have been around forever.
They started migrating from their old data centers to Microsoft Azure in October 2025. And running split traffic during a migration like that adds a lot of complexity.
Wait, so Microsoft's own infrastructure is what's breaking Microsoft's developer platform?
That is literally what happened. The irony is pretty thick.
Okay, so OpenAI gets fed up, and apparently some engineers just started building an alternative.
That is what the information reported. Its early stage could take months, and there's no guarantee it ships to external customers at all.
So it might just be an internal tool.
Could be. Big tech has done this before. Google has Piper, Meta has FB Code, Apple has internal systems. None of them killed GitHub for open source work.
But if OpenAI decides to sell this thing to developers, that is a very different story.
That's where it gets complicated, because Microsoft owns GitHub, and Microsoft also owns about 27% of OpenAI.
So OpenAI is potentially building a competitor to a product owned by its largest investor. That is a situation.
And it doesn't stop there. GitHub Copilot, their biggest premium product, runs on OpenAI's models. Microsoft is paying OpenAI to power the AI features in the product OpenAI is now competing with.
That's a genuinely strange loop.
Sam Altman even said recently there are, quote, points of tension in the Microsoft relationship. He didn't get specific, but this certainly fits.
Now, if OpenAI does commercialize this, what would make it different? It's not just going to be GitHub with better uptime, right?
The pitch internally, according to the reporting, is native AI integration. Not GitHub adding Copilot as a plugin, but a repository designed from the start around AI as a first-class contributor.
So the idea is agents can commit code, open pull requests, review changes, all in the same environment as human engineers.
That is the vision. GitHub has been retrofitting AI onto a platform built before any of this existed. An OpenAI native repo would be designed with that assumption baked in.
Honestly, that sounds compelling, but I keep coming back to the Microsoft angle. Would Microsoft just let this happen?
The Azure compute deal runs for years and is too valuable for either side to blow up. But every move OpenAI makes into Microsoft territory chips away at the idea that this is an equal partnership.
It's almost like OpenAI is building its own stack, piece by piece.
That's a fair way to read it. Developer tooling, enterprise software, now potentially code hosting. The vertical integration story is real.
So what should developers make of this right now? Should anyone be worried about GitHub?
I think the honest answer is watch and wait. The project may never ship publicly, but the 37 incident February should make any team think about their own dependency on a single platform.
Redundancy isn't just for data anymore.
Not when your AI agents are in the loop too.
All right, that's a great place to land. If this story develops, we'll be back on it. Thanks for listening to the Awesome Agents podcast, and we'll see you next time.